The VO Live is brought to you by Zencaster. No, really. It's recorded on Zencaster. So it's truly brought to you by Zencaster.
This is the VO Life. Positive conversations about living the voiceover life. Insight into the business and day-to-day grind of being a regular Joe VO. From the humble beginnings to the finally hitting a new level to getting that first big client. It's all about that VO life. Here's your host, Troy Holden.
Hey, and welcome back to the VO Life. This is a place where if you don't know anything about VO, I don't even know why you're listening, but that's okay. We'll let you listen. There's something to be learned, something for everyone. You know, of all the names, the famous names I could go out and get, and I really wasn't even sure this guy was still around. James Brown. You guys remember James Brown? You know, I feel good. No, it's not that James Brown. I'm sorry. This is a different James. And he's all the way across the water, and he's joining me here right now on the VO Live. How's it going, James?
It's going very well, Troy. The best thing I can say about me, obviously not in the same league as that James Brown, but I am still alive and therefore able to actually appear on your podcast.
Yes,
which is a great privilege. Thank you very much for having me on this.
Well, I'm excited for you being here because I want people to hear from people who are in the grind and are working. I try to get other people that are coaches, teachers. I've got some really good folks coming up, especially if you're interested in e-learning. Christy Bowen is going to join me here before long. And Christy has a studio in Nashville, but she is very well known for e-learning. And she runs the Tennessee voiceover thing here. So she's coming up, and that'll be interesting as well. But as we were just talking about before we went, quote, on the air, you were doing some e-learning for, did you say French Maritime?
Yeah, it's probably going to be my biggest job ever, actually. In fact, it is my biggest job ever. It teaches people in the French Navy. It has to be in both languages because of maritime law. So they're doing a huge introduction to all things ships, and I'm learning all these various different terms as well as I'm going along. And it's about 10,000 words. So I've been sort of working my way through that. Sometimes these things are great fun. Oftentimes they're a bit of a grind because you spend a lot of time just going on and doing a lot of file splitting. It's one of those, but you know, it's good work. So absolutely more of that, the merrier. I'd be very happy.
Good. I have enjoyed watching your journey with some of this, and what a lot of people may or may not know what you did before. So I want to talk a little bit about that before you got into voiceover and how you got into doing this type of voiceover work. Give us a little background.
Well, I was a journalist by trade for quite a long time, about 15 years. And I was making documentaries. I was also doing news, and I was based over in Russia of all places, for the vast majority of that time. And so while I was over there meeting all these people doing cultural documentaries from all sorts of different regions in the country, I was approached and somebody asked me to do some of their English language voiceover because there was still a need for that back then. And I started to do little bits really. And it was just something that popped along, and it paid like, $100 here or a couple of hundred there if it was an extra hour or something like that. And it was a nice little occasional side gig that I never really thought much more about. If I'm totally honest, it never struck me as something that could be a possible full-time career. Amazingly. Thinking of it now, it just seems like, cripes, where was my head at for a lot of that time? But that's the way that it was, and that's kind of where it grew. And I in the end, I left Russia in 2019, and I came back and decided that I wanted to have a go at the TV industry here, which was great timing because that was the start of the pandemic. And literally everything shut down. So my attempts to do that were basically already scuppered before they had even started. And it ended up that I was really looking at thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do here? Because it was, funds were getting very low. I was doing some freelance journalism on the side, but not enough to really, provide a living for a family.
Mhm.
and I was feeling a bit lost. And then I started to um, look into the possibility of doing more voiceover on the side. But then I heard an interview with a guy called Guy Michaels, who runs, I don't know if I mind if I say it's a company called the Voiceover Kickstart.
Mhm.
And Guy was talking about how people were setting up their home studios and were could do that as a way to get into voiceover.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I got nothing to lose here. Why not have a go? And so I joined that site. I also joined Gravy for the Brain. I joined the VoiceOver Network, and I looked into how people were getting started, what kind of equipment they needed, and I got myself a Rode USB mic. Don't laugh, but those are the kind of things that I stuck it in a cardboard box with some foam on the outside, and I stuck it on top of my piano, and I started recording into that. And that
Mhm.
was my
Mhm.
massively amateurish, uh, beginning in trying to get what was a reasonable sound. And for about 6 months of last year, that's what I was recording into, and I listen back to that stuff now and cringe inwardly. That's what I was sending out as, a vaguely professional sound because it was kind of it was crap.
Mhm.
But you only realize that, I think, when you have got a studio like I have now and invest and been able really to invest in that, and you can hear, okay, this is what it's supposed to sound like.
Right. Right.
And that's really sort of how I got started, basically by sort of fumbling and stumbling and faking it until I haven't made it, but faking it to get a start. Do you know what I mean? Until I
Right.
was able to afford proper gear. And
Right.
I've been trying to make this a real business. Um, since about, just coming up to about a year now.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this is going into month number 9 for me full time, and luckily each month, except for 1 or 2, but each month I've incrementally done better. Whether it's the number of jobs, the number of agents, the amount of money I made, whatever, it's every month I've got a little bit of an uptick. I think I had one hiccup, and I don't remember if it was May or April or what it was. And I was celebrating this month because it was my best month ever, but I only got 4% of my income from Fiverr. Only
I
4%.
saw that post and I was
Yeah.
thinking that that's amazing
Yeah,
because,
and that was the goal.
yeah, it's really good because I think that, I guess maybe we'll talk a bit more about Fiverr and the freelance platforms,
Mhm.
a little bit later on. But I think that they're a great, again, another way for people to kind of get them, because it's exactly what I've done, is I've been able to get myself a foothold and effectively bring a product to market that
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been able to do, starting with direct,
Right.
because it's a slower
Right.
burn mainly.
Yes.
Um, so it has given me perhaps the luxury to be able again to invest in more coaching, making myself better, getting some proper business coaching, because I'm not an entrepreneur. I never was. I was employed for
Mhm.
for all of my adult life, in my working life. I'm very new to this. So finding out how
Mhm.
to manage a business, treat it as a business, market yourself properly, get clients, retain those relationship with clients, and do it right so that you're able to,
Mhm.
uh, not get kicked out onto the street with bailiffs chasing you is difficult, and it
It
takes
is.
there's a steep learning curve, which I think
It is. It's
is
hard.
something that we all have to navigate.
Yeah, the business side and getting that coaching and advice is just as important as all of the other, and finding someone you can trust to help with that, it's difficult. It is. Just I grew up in a family business the first 12 years of my life and watched my dad run a business, so I had a little bit of that acumen in me, not as much as he did. But then I went into the corporate world for 25 years. And like you're saying, they deposit your paycheck, they tell you what to do, they take care of the bills, and this is very different. I was thinking yesterday, I think there are at least 6 different methods I have to deal with on getting paid. at
Yeah.
least, and not counting, uh, your platforms are putting your money into PayPal. That's where most of mine goes. But I have people I have to bill in a odd way. I have one guy I have to send a spreadsheet between the 1st and the 5th of the month and list the jobs I did and the name of the file and what day I sent it. And he pays me on PayPal, but I have to fill out this little elaborate sheet for him every month. And then I have the others that I have to invoice them on Waves. I have others that want the PayPal invoice. And then I've got, of course, the agency stuff where they just send you a check and you wait and you wait and you wait for a check. Sometimes that's disheartening. But the good thing is you forget about it. And a month and a half, 2 months later, you go to the mailbox and you're like, oh, wow, I forgot about this. That
I
part's
love the
kind of
fact that
nice.
America still gets checks. I remember when a check was very exciting back in the
Hmm.
day, and it would be in a birthday card, and it would be for like £10, and that was great. And I don't think that I have had a check paid to me probably in the last 15 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's something that you guys kind of hang on to still, right? I don't know why,
Yeah, I
but
don't either. And it
you
amazes me that we still have banks everywhere because there's nobody ever at the bank. Nobody. But my mother, God bless her, she's 84 and she still goes to the drive-in and even though the Social Security Administration direct deposits her thing, she goes to the bank at least once or twice a month. Just
well, good for
I don't know
Mrs.
why,
Holden.
but
Isn't
yeah,
she?
still
Isn't
out,
she
still
doing
out
well?
driving.
Yeah,
Yep, still
absolutely.
out driving. Amazing. But I do remember, it doesn't seem like that long ago that, they handed you a check and you had to go to the bank and stand
Yeah,
in line for 30 minutes just to get up there and put your money in. And you did that on Friday and you were lucky it might show up in your account by Tuesday,
yeah.
maybe. I used to hate that, but yep, things have changed for sure. Now that you've been at this a while, we'll get into platforms here in a minute, but let's talk about genre and the things that what do you like best about what you do, as far as genre wise, and what do you like least, but you still do it?
It's an interesting question. Anything with a story is um, is great. So sometimes there's a lot of formulaic stuff. So there's a lot of stuff which is explainers, which is basically, you are, it's e-learning and you're teaching A to B, and that can be, and it's very important. It's vital because people need health and safety training. People need to be told how to use expensive equipment. They need to be told how to follow certain rules. All of that has to be done. The job there is to try and make that sound engaging, even if it is not necessarily the most thrilling thing in the world, which of course
Mhm,
most of it isn't. Um, so those sort of things tend to be regular. They tend to be what you'd call like bread and butter.
mhm,
But sometimes you get, and they tend to pay quite well. So nobody is turning that down. But if you're lucky and you're able to get a bit of variety, like what was I doing today? Today, over the last couple of days, I got 3 haikus to read, which were actually rather good haikus. I haven't seen a haiku since
mhm,
school, I don't
mhm,
think. But that was lovely. They were really well written, quite poignant. That's a chance to be creative with your delivery. There was there was a parody, a rather adult parody of the Madagascar penguins. I don't know if you know Madagascar, Troy. I do because I've got a 6-year-old,
yes,
and he's very much into the cartoons, which is also quite good because you get to see all the voices. But the Madagascar penguins
right.
have their own spin-off, I think, that was so wildly popular.
Mhm,
But in this
mhm.
case, things went a bit dark with the Madagascar penguins, shall we say? So we're doing a couple of voices of them. I did a purple head vampire a couple of days ago for a video game, which is very sort of anime style, and that sort of lordly, rather all up there and taking everyone under their spell. Um, those things. To be honest, when you get to act, that's a treat.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
it's because I used to do a lot of theatre at university and before, but I haven't done it
Mhm,
for about 20 years, and you rather lose your confidence with it, in all honesty. So I getting that back and have people react positively to that when you're doing voices, for instance, for characters, or when you're delivering something is lovely, and it gives you that joy comes back
Mhm.
that at least for me, that I felt when I was on stage, because you're
Right,
getting in performance, and it's just so much fun to do that.
right.
Or it might be if someone's just written a great story. A guy had me read his essay for on the London riots of 2011, but it's from his perspective as a student at the time, and
Mhm.
so it's very human. There are characters that he meets along the way. There's saving the day. It's got a. It was just a really good story, and when you get something that's well written, again, that's a treat.
Yes.
Because, of course, our job is to make the script lively and come alive most of the time, and get across the client's message as best we can.
Mhm.
But sometimes the
Mhm.
client's message is very dull,
Right.
and it may not be written in a way that you would want to read, ideally. But sometimes you're lucky you get a great script, and that's just again a massive bonus. So
Yes.
I love documentaries. I love character voices. The dream would be, of course, to do a network cartoon or some video game, a bigger video game, or more regular. Yeah, those are those are the dreams. I'm hoping that maybe one day that will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard the characters. I know it's in there. That's and I love doing that as well. It's fun. And I think you really hit the nail on the head. The acting. I think a lot of people don't see this as acting. And my gosh, it is acting. Everything we read, we're either, even in the serious stuff, you're a little right or a little left of yourself. You very seldom are just you. Yeah, you're trying to be your voice, conversational, this, or whatever. But we always find a character for everything. I did an audition the other day, and it was a dog who was getting a bath in the sink. I was the dog, and he was a Yorkie, and he was supposed to have a little Sopranos attitude. So where
Right.
I go right to Joe Pesci. I'm not gonna do Joe Pesci's voice, but I'm thinking of I gotta do a character that is like him. He's a little nasally, a little high voice, and he's, "Hey, you, what are you doing? Give me a bat? What's wrong with you?" And that's where you go. You get into that and you stay in it for a few minutes and you come out, and then, like you said, 5 minutes later, you may be reading a luxury read for a jeweler or a
Yep.
watch company, and now you're all intimate with your mic, and a a regular actor, they get to study one part and stay with it usually for a while. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks, it could be longer.
Mm,
We have to change gears every 10 minutes, and this is not easy to do sometimes, and I think that's what cuts those that are readers, it cuts them out. That's
yeah.
where they quickly fall out of the business because 'cause they're readers. They're not acting, and they're not really absorbing that script and bringing it to life. They're just reading it. "Oh, you have a
Yeah.
great voice." Well, okay, what can you do with that voice?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the trick they miss. Now you mentioned the boys. Let's talk about these children and what you've got going on there. Now, that's gotta keep you busy too.
Yes, just the one boy.
Just
Um,
one? Okay.
my little lad Danny, although not so little. We took him to the pediatrician. They measured him. They told me he's 6 and a quarter. Is he? Yeah, 6 and a quarter. Told me he's the size of a 9-year-old. I knew he was tall,
Wow.
but apparently he's going to be 6'6",
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
which is yeah, he's going to be a unit. So I don't know what that's gonna be like, 'cause he starts shoving me around at about the age of 13, I think it's gonna be,
You're gonna be
and then
pleasantly
upwards.
surprised.
You
You'll be
reckon?
pleasantly surprised
Okay,
that,
I'll take your
my
word for it.
son is huge. He's 6'4", he weighs about 270, he's played
Oh,
American
blimey.
football for
Yeah, yeah.
years, and once he passed me, it just became he just put his arm around me and pat on me a little.
All right,
I
dad.
don't know if he was reminding me that I'm huge, I could break you in half, or he was patting me and saying, "You're still dad, I'll do what you say." You know? You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised, but they are so much fun. That's a great age too. Anything from once they get up and start walking until they get about 14, 15, it gets a little challenging, as
Yes.
they are
If I
trying to
remember
find their
me at
way.
that age,
Yeah,
definitely challenging. So, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but it's
What
fun.
what is great is that you couldn't have a better audience, though, in terms of practicing voices.
Oh, yes.
So, like, for
Yes.
for bedtime stories, and now we're into Dogman now. So this is by I can't remember the guy's surname, but he's the same guy who did a cartoon called Captain Underpants. And also, I believe, like my boy has ADHD, and so does this author. And Danny rather gravitates to this comic book, and
Mhm.
he's deeply engrossed in it. And so we get the chance to do all these different voices.
Mhm.
And Danny will do some of the voices, and I will do the grown-up voices generally, or the evil voices. And he and I can immediately tell if something is working because he'll be staring at me, or if something is not working, then he'll zone out. So, well,
Right.
that voice didn't work. So, yeah, there's this lovely honesty when you're reading to children that gives you
Mhm.
immediate feedback about whether what you are doing is actually any
Right.
good.
Right. Right. Yeah, adults just zone us out anyway. I think my whole family, thinks that I'm nuts. You're doing that? You just record stuff. That's all you do.
You sit in a
And you
booth
quit and
talking to
you
yourself
quit
all
your
day.
job. Yeah. You quit your job to do that. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
great.
and isn't it the best thing ever?
It is. It is. And I've learned my lesson. I don't play anything for them anymore. At first, I was like, "Listen to this. This is really neat," and now I'm like, "Nah, they don't care. They don't
Oh,
care." But that's okay. My wife is supportive enough for all of them.
good.
She's always encouraging me. She's the one that said, "You go to the Chamber of Commerce and you go to these meetups in Nashville and you go to VO Atlanta. You've got to get out and go."
Yeah,
And it really helped. It's really the connections and associations I've made have really been a big help. I think
yep,
that also is as important. You've got to have your space, get your equipment, get your coaching, try to figure out how to run a business, and then you've got to start associating with the right people. If you get the right people behind you and the right people in front of you and the right people beside you, you will be successful, but you've got to have that support all the way around to make things work. It's just
correct.
hard.
I think that there's a
So,
lesson that actually that you learn, or hopefully you learn. It's quite easy to not want people around you who challenge you because it makes you feel better about yourself. But actually, if you don't go or gravitate towards people or try and surround yourself with people who are better than you at certain
mhm,
things and who know more about things you don't know,
right.
then you don't learn. It's comfortable and it's quite fun, and you don't ever get and you stay in that nice comfortable zone, but
Mhm,
you don't grow professionally, and sometimes you don't grow personally either. And sort of getting yourself out of that it can be a bit of a mind shift, and it's not very comfortable, but you have to step out there. And this is
yes.
and you and I've met a lot of people who I kind of feel are waiting to be perfect before they start. And the
Mhm,
only thing so they're getting these incredibly expensive demos done by someone like JMC maybe, or they're doing this, they're spending 3 grand on a website, and, and they're getting this Studio Bricks booth set up. They haven't recorded anything yet. So they're getting, like, what would you I suppose maybe if you were a Hollywood film star, you might get all this done immediately. But
mhm,
these are kind of ordinary people who are thinking, "Yeah, I wanna do this," but they aren't doing it.
right,
They're sort of
right.
it seems to me like it's one of it's like, "Well, I'm gonna procrastinate and procrastinate," but actually it's easier for me to not do it and to try and be perfect because it stops me actually having to get out there. And I
Right.
I I kind of think, and everyone will has their own way of doing things, don't get me wrong, but if you don't make yourself vulnerable in that way,
Mhm,
to put something out there, I don't think you can get better. There's only so
right.
much you can do with preparation before you have to get on the field, right, and give it a go, I think.
Correct. I agree. And that's what I like about these platforms. They offer every level of expertise that opportunity to get out there. I was trying to add up a few months ago how many YouTube narrations I had done in 2 years, and it was almost 3,000.
Wow.
3,000 YouTube narrations. And and I look
It's like
back and I
6 a
think,
day.
yeah,
No, in
and
2
you look
years.
back and
2 years,
in
yeah,
2 years,
3 a day,
and you
yeah.
look back and you think, my gosh, I didn't make any money doing that, but
Mm,
I really learned how to read ahead. My eyes started training to where I was a few words ahead. It taught me so much, and it also taught me to edit.
Yeah,
My editing skills are pretty darn good now because of all that. I can shoot through a 15-minute narration, get it read, go through and edit it and deliver it in 25 minutes. I mean, it just doesn't take that long anymore. Everything's quicker.
that's
So
awesome.
I don't regret any of that. I don't regret taking that chance. And there are people who will say, don't use those platforms. Don't use them. You shouldn't do that. It's cheapening the industry.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be, but people want to work. They want to
Mm.
learn. They want to get feedback. And you can get that from a coach and you can pay a coach, or you can go on these platforms, make a little money, get the feedback directly from clients and find out if it's what you want to do. Some people do it for a while and they say, nah, that's it. I don't really like it. It's too hard. It takes too much time, and I get that. I
But
get that.
also, you also get the money to be able to pay those coaches, unless you're coming
Yes.
from a position of where you have a lot of disposable income. You're happy to put into this and maybe not necessarily get something out. Um, I went on Fiverr and Upwork, and Fiverr is where I've made the majority of my income in the last 6 months. And that money has been able to get me a business coach, and pay for my VO coaching, none of which is cheap. Uh,
Right.
I'll have to let you know about that, and I'm sure that it's the same with everybody, but it's very expensive, but it is
Mm-hmm.
making me better, so it is
Mm-hmm.
worth it, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making me better at treating this not like it's not a game, it's absolutely a business, and you have to
Right.
and you have to network and you have to get out there and you have to try and do social media. And my main issue at the moment is that I know I'm not doing enough marketing. I know I'm not doing enough direct marketing. I know I'm not doing enough social media, and I know I have to. So I'm having to think about, either do I perhaps try and get myself a virtual assistant to
Mm-hmm.
help me with my lead generation so I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can find a way of making those steps, because at the moment it seems like you don't have enough hours in the day, but
Right.
people do make it work. But I think outsourcing is something that people are afraid of, me included, because you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to let go of
Mm-hmm.
anything. But if you're not doing it because you aren't outsourcing, or you don't feel you've got enough time, then surely it has to be something to consider. At least I think that's
Right.
going to be the next step for me in where I'm trying to go, is
Mm-hmm.
get someone who's better than me doing that stuff, so I can maybe focus on the stuff that I think I'm a bit better at.
Right, and it may take time to find that person you can trust. I'm with you there.
For sure.
It's hard to hand over passwords and things like that. Here, you go in there and do this for me. Here's the
Yes.
password. All they have to do is send that one wrong email or something, and then you
Yeah,
could
I
be in
don't know
trouble.
if I would be comfortable with someone doing emails for me. I was sort of more thinking
Hmm.
about lead gen and just
Oh yeah, yeah,
teaching me
yeah,
different
yeah.
techniques in terms of time management, because I have
Hmm.
to squeeze more out. And it's
Right,
weird,
right,
but there's just if you put in, like, attempting to be with family responsibilities, I also have caring responsibilities for my father who has Alzheimer's. So that's and so I it's a juggling act. But
right,
I'm at home. I'm able to do this from my home, which
right.
means that whereas if I was doing a regular job, I would be having to commute probably, and going back and forth. I wouldn't be able to be here,
Hmm.
and it's so that it's given me the freedom to be able to do it. I just have to manage it better, and I know
Right,
that
right.
it's getting a
I'm right there
handle on
with
that.
you. Right there with you. It's difficult. We're trying to maintain a business and grow a business, and there's only so many hours a day. And yes, there's children, there's family, there's other responsibilities. It's hard. It's really hard. I feel uh, 4 out of 5 days a week, I feel guilty that I didn't get out of here quick enough to where I could help my wife outside or at the barn with the animals. And, she came in today and one had an eye swelled up and, what does it need? What does it need? And I just stop what I'm doing, go do that. And the beauty is I can come back and finish.
Yeah,
It's okay. I'm not, nobody's standing in here with a gun to my head that I have to finish this right now. I can get up and leave. So I'm learning to be better and be more flexible with it. And that's been hard because all my life I've worked an 8, 9, 10 hour day and you had to work, 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 work. And you
yep,
didn't go to the doctor appointment. You didn't do all that. You couldn't take time away. And now I do. I go do things with her during the week. We may be gone a couple hours during the day, and I try to make better priorities, but it's hard.
I think this is
Let's
the
give
this is
let's
the
give some
great. Sorry, Troy. Just carry on,
Oh,
please.
you're fine. I just want to let us give some advice to the new VO. They've heard your struggle starting up and what you did starting up. If you could give somebody that one magical thing, I don't know if we call it magical, but to keep them out of a lot of, um, I guess, being perplexed about VO, how do you just tell them about this is what you should do to get started? What's the easy way?
I think that you should go to one of the big sites that teach people or have a lot of resources about how to get started. I think that they are such if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, and you probably shouldn't starting up if you're just looking to inquire about it. But if you want someone which has a lot of resources in one place, I don't think you can beat Gravy for the Brain. I think that's a fantastic site. I think Guy Michael's voiceover Kickstart is an excellent site. I think both of those are very good, and they will also give you some. They will give you live sessions with people who have been there and done it that you will be able to attend and ask questions to live. You'll also have years, especially with Gravy, of back catalogs of work and webinars that will tell you, will pretty much give you everything you need to know, and they even sort of got a step by step guide of how to get started. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You should get yourself a professional mic. They can be as little as £100, about $120 at this point, I think, with the exchange rate. And you can start recording. You can chuck a coat over your head, you can chuck a duvet over your sofa and record under that because that's what almost everybody does to get started. But get started. Start, do
Yes,
something. Don't don't wait to be perfect because it's never perfect and almost and if you keep waiting you won't improve.
right.
So try and learn, but don't sacrifice doing for learning, I would say. I would say start. Nobody's gonna, turn around and say, "You must never do VO again. Now you have failed because you have not got yourself your Sennheiser for 2 grand, and it sounds tinny, and you will never be allowed to darken our door." This is an incredibly supportive. This is another wonderful thing I'll tell you about being in voiceover, having been in quite a backstabby profession for a very long time.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
the vast majority of people in VO are lovely, so they will be there to
Mhm.
help you. You can reach out to them. They will do things for you off their own back. They will be there to help, and it is a lovely feeling that people are
Mhm.
not, are willing to do that because you do need help as a new person. But
Right.
jump in. Don't hang around on the sides forever because that's the way nothing gets done. Jump
That's
in.
right. That's right. Yeah, those kids that hang on the edge of the swimming pool and never get
Yeah,
out in the middle of the water, they're not gonna learn to swim.
yeah,
So, you
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
get out there and do it. You have to get in and make the mistakes, and people will help you along. It is one of the most supportive communities I've ever been around, and it makes you wanna be the same way. I have people all the time asking, "How do I get started? How do I do this or that?" And I've got some documents that I have just made I keep on my desktop on my computer, and I'm like, here's my 3 pages about demos. Here's my 2 pages about how to start. What mic, how to get just enough sound enforcement to
Yeah.
to get you going, and that way I don't have to answer it over and over and over, and that's been a big help too. And there's so many resources out there. Yes, the ones that James mentioned are fantastic. There's tons of Facebook groups. There's everything. Yeah, so if it's an interest for someone, jump in. Jump in. You know, yeah, you can put the floaty around your arm for a little while, but you gotta go. It's what
The
makes it fun.
Facebook groups you mentioned actually are also excellent because you can ask questions and people will respond.
Mhm.
It's a great way
Mhm.
to just get, quicker feedback than you might do on some of the bigger sites. You'll get faster
Yes.
from there.
Yes, it does. It does. All right, so, before we go, I want to put you on the spot and ask about goals.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, I mean, when we're talking about running a business, we should have plans, goals, dreams, a visual board, a spreadsheet, something that says this year I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to have this many of agents, I want to have this type of client. Um, where are you headed? we talked about the e-learning and the characters and you kind of touched on that. So I hear you talking about, I'd like to have a major video game. I'd like to have something like that. Do you have a visual somewhere in your studio where every day you sit down and you see that and it gives you the drive to do that? Or how do you do your goals?
I've been trying to be quite practical with this in the sense that I realize that because the vast majority of my money at the moment is coming from freelance platforms, I could get hacked, I could say the wrong thing, someone could buy out the sites, decide that they don't want voiceover artists on them anymore, and they could just delete my profile and that would be it. And because everybody on those sites are not your clients, they are the client of the sites.
Mhm.
Uh, so they are not a sustainable way to run a business, I don't think. They are a great way to drape up, but you need to be developing your own client lists and you need to be reaching out to the agents and you need those strands. So my first goal is to develop a sustainable business that I know that that I've got enough irons in the fire around the world that I should be okay in terms of clients coming in to keep the lights on and keep my family and myself afloat, and hopefully, well,
Mhm.
much more than afloat, because I don't want to do this to survive. I want to thrive. So I've already exceeded my expectations for my first year in the business. I intend to continue to do that and get significantly better. But that's only going to be a way if I can create a sustainable pipeline. I can say that I'd love to go and be a series regular on a Nickelodeon cartoon, and if I keep practicing, who knows? Maybe I'll get some auditions for that. It's not, but there's also 10,000 other actors out there who want to do that themselves and more. And I'm not in Hollywood. I'm in Torquay, which is very glamorous, but not quite as potentially, it's not as full of A-list stars as Rodeo Drive and other places over there in California. But it's I think if I can grow my business to the point where I realize that I'm in charge of my monthly earnings rather than somebody else
Mhm.
who could cut off the pipeline. I hope they won't.
Right.
I hope but I want to be the person in control of that. What I really want, Troy, is to feel like I have total control over my business. So if Fiverr kicked me off, or I decided to say goodbye to it, to all those sites, I would be okay. And I would be more than okay. I would be good. Um,
Good. Good, good,
that's
good.
where I want to be in the next 12 months. I want to completely skew. Now that I have the base, I want to use that to get me to a stage where I've freed up the time that I can market, establish good relationships with clients all over the world, and create a sustainable business from that. And along the way, if I'm lucky enough to be able to get with agents who send me good parts, and I improve as an actor and as I improve as a VO, and maybe one of those roles lands, and maybe that gets some traction there, and it leads to better and bigger acting roles, then that would be fabulous. But at the moment,
Awesome.
I want to make sure that I have a business that I can do for the next 25 years. That's what I want to do. I love being my own boss. It's the best thing I've ever done. I wish I did it 20 years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. Love that story. Love that story. James, thanks so much for hanging out with me for a while. I know everybody's going to enjoy hearing more about you. A lot of people in the group know who you are, but they just don't, it's just good to hear the background. I love hearing the different stories of how people have got in this, how they started, how they're going, where they want to go. Just fantastic, man. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Absolute pleasure, Troy. And let's do it again. I really enjoyed
We
it.
we will. Absolutely.
This was the VO Life. It's over. For now. Yay! Oh, aren't you all so glad?
You've been listening to The VO Life with Troy Holden. Check back for more episodes each week and catch up on what you've missed also. This is for you, those just living that VO life. Thanks for listening and join us again.